From poetry to hip hop. Welcome back to At Home Songwriting. I'm Chad Shank hanging out with you once again. And part of my mission with this channel is to talk to other independent writers, independent recording artists, independent rappers, singers, people who are in the indie music world doing what we're all doing. And that's trying to be creative in a really messed up world. And recently, I went to a performance with someone who has been on the channel before. So if you've been watching the channel, I've talked to a rapper by the name of Bo Diz. He's been on the channel a couple of times. And I went to one of his shows, and one of his supporting acts, Crowfather, performed. And Crowfather and I, his name's Nick, we talked prior to him going on stage and we really connected on music. And I wanted to bring his energy and his story to you here at Home Songwriting. So I hope by you meeting other people out there that are making music, trying to be creative, trying to figure things out, I hope this is helpful. And let's jump in and meet Crowfather. Nick, welcome to At Home Songwriting. How's it going?
Good, how are you?
Good. I met you a few weeks ago at a gig here. We were going, or I was going to the Bo Diz show, and you were opening for Bo, and
Yep.
we got to talking, and it was nice to meet another independent musician, independent recording artist, independent writer. So, how are things going for you?
Things are going well, life is lifing. Yeah, things are going well. How about yourself?
Yeah, life is life in, the world is worldin,
Yep.
all that stuff. So, it's a weird time to be creative, honestly, because I feel
Yes.
like everything I want to write somehow goes to technology and politics and just
Yes.
all of that stuff. So, have you been experiencing that as well?
Yes, kind of sorta. One of the things that I've been like, I don't know, I guess kind of like fortunate enough to make part of my brand was kind of like mental health and like the one of the things that, regardless of the times, mental health kind of always stays the same. And so there's that, but then
Yeah.
there's also like the very real like what is causing a lot of people of this stress and depression and blah blah blah. And it's like probably like things happening in government right now, things happening in the world right now. And so it's like very much so hard to not like want to talk about it. Especially because
Hmm.
like having been like and I know we kind of related about this too at that show, like talking about being kind of having been around long enough now where it's like you keep seeing the things and it almost feels like how do you not say something about it? Like we have the
Yeah.
voice, like how do you not? And so like there's always that phrase that gets repeated a lot where it's like artists kind of have a responsibility to reflect the times and kind of like show hold up a mirror to what's actually happening.
Yeah, so as I mentioned in the intro, you go by Crowfather. That's your
Hmm.
artist name, and you're in the hip hop genre. But maybe take us back. How did you get started in music? Like, what was that evolution for you?
I just always loved music, like always. One of my grandmas says there's a picture of me somewhere, like standing with my head like in a tower speaker, and it was just that's like if I was left alone, that's where I would be. And so, that just kind of was always the thing. I always had music on, or it was like Christmas, birthdays, I was asking for CDs, I was asking for this, that, or the other thing. Just it always like music related. Like, can you buy me tickets to this show? Can you get me a shirt for this band? Can you get me this album? Can you get me, it was a lot, always a lot of it had to do with music. Um, because I was always like watching the music video channels. Like that was what I did, like doing homework. Like I'd come home from school and basically put that on, or like my friends and I would be hanging out, like playing video games or something like that. We'd do the same thing. Be like, what kind of music did you find this week? And then just kind of go through and so I was like always had my ear to it. And so I always like wanted to be a part of it. And like didn't know how that would be, like even as a kid. And then it was like, um, I was young. I was probably like 9 or 10 years old, and I just remember like hip hop like being like I saw it on TV and I was like, what is that? Like it was just super
Mm.
cool. And then kind of throughout, growing up in like middle school and high school, kind of the same thing of like finding more and more hip hop and just kind of like, well, this stuff is really awesome. And then finding my own kind of like love for writing, like in middle school, high school. And then the two just kind of like started to come together where it was like, if I got good enough at this, I bet I could do this. And
So
so,
when you were a kid and like when your grandma said that she noticed kind of that you were really into it, what were you
mhm.
listening to then? Was it hip hop at that point, or did you have other things you were listening to?
At that point, it was probably just rock. Probably a lot of rock. Parents
Yeah,
listened to just like the classics kind of stuff. Soft rock, heavy metal, little bit. And then like at grandma's, it was probably more like okay, but if it was like turned up loud enough, I just didn't care. Um,
sweet.
and then once like I started finding things on my own, it was very much grew up like pop punker, like rocker, like loved hardcore, loved going into a mosh pit. Didn't matter what the band sounded like. But then once I found hip hop and once I had kind of dove into like some of the local scene in Minneapolis, it was kind of game over. It was like, no, this is where I'm at now. And it's like I still listen to everything. Um, like recently I've been like forcing myself to branch out into other genres because I've been listening to caught myself kind of been like I've been listening to just hip hop for like a while. And so I was like kind of reconnecting with old genres and stuff.
Cool.
Yeah.
So were you playing instruments? Are you a musician, so to speak, or what's your deal there?
No. I I blame my ADHD for it. I just never had
Sure.
like the only other thing that ever sounded interesting was drums.
Yeah.
And then like singing, I'd always kind of like I'd wanted to sing, but never had the chops for it, really. Like couldn't just didn't have the patience, I guess, didn't have the training, didn't not the confidence, whatever. So, and then on top of that, like the environment that I was in during my childhood didn't really allow for that kind of like structure and like it just wouldn't have panned out. Like anything that I did when I was younger kind of only lasted for a month or so because of things that were going on at home.
Sure.
Yeah.
So this channel obviously is about songwriting. So a lot of people
Mhm.
watching are writers themselves. When did things move from I enjoy the genre, I enjoy music, I enjoy hip hop to I think I want to make that? What was that transition for you?
It was probably hearing hearing the relatable things. It was like the first time that I had heard um just like I don't even like the first time I heard like a really emotional song that made me like as a kid just be like holy shit that's what I've gone through that. And so it
Yeah,
was like and then in kind of finding more and more of that it was like that's when it kind of became a transition where it was like this is giving me confidence because it's allowing me to relate to these people that I see as like titans because they have like all this braggadocio, all this moxie, all this whatever, where it's like, oh, but you do that, that's your radio hit, and that's what everybody knows. But then you listen to the album and you hear this, and it's like you're brave enough to say all that shit. And so that was like kind of what dragged me into it, where it was like it was really like storytelling, but with
awesome.
like extra steps and extra kind of skill involved in it. And so it was like tricking people into learning about everything that you'd been through. It's kind of how I saw it as a kid. Because like as a kid, it's like you're talking about whatever you went, you're talking about the bad stuff, or you're trauma dumping or whatever. Not everyone's gonna want to listen to that. Most people aren't gonna want to listen to that. They're gonna tune out at some point. But then it's like you put it in song form, people are gonna listen
Right?
to it four or five, six times before they realize you're telling them something. So,
And isn't it's interesting that music has that extra something or extra magic
mhm.
that it's the language that we all speak, sort of the universal language they say,
Yeah.
because the music can put the what's being said into you in a different way,
hmm
more so than if someone just said it. So I think that's
Right.
that's really cool.
Right. And like one of the reasons I think, well, the one of the reasons that we do like hip hop so much is just as like a society is because of how much our brains love to hear rhythm. and it loves to
Mhm.
hear rhyming and stuff like that. So it's like on a chemical level, like hip hop brings people joy. And so that's and it can evoke any kind of emotion, and that's wonderful to me. I've always kind of
Yeah.
thought of it as like it's like a return to our very first form of storytelling as humans, or very first form of art as humans, which is storytelling. It was oration, it was all of that. And now it's like we've come back to it and we've got this fascination with hip hop because we're doing the same thing. We're doing our storytelling, but we've added the music as well.
So how did you start writing? What did you just start writing like lyrics or how did it start for you?
I started writing poetry. Um,
Cool.
Started writing poetry in middle school. I had heard a friend that was doing it and wouldn't let me read any of it because he was like kind of talking of like it was his way to vent. And then that spoke to me a little bit. And so then I had kind of started doing the same thing and then started using it kind of as like an escape as well, where I was like building worlds and like doing all the different stories and doing that. And then it turned into um in the back of my mind wanting to do hip hop at some point. And so I was like, but it was always like I didn't want to get picked on. I already got picked on enough for everything else. And so I didn't want to get picked on for that as well. So I was like, I'm going to get really good at it first,
Hmm.
and then I'll tell people that I do it. And that was kind of the mindset until like college. And then college, I was like, fuck it. I need to start doing it. Otherwise, I'm not going to get good at it. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Isn't it funny though? I think there's wisdom in what you just said with the sometimes we tell people what we're going to do and
Hmm.
then we never actually do it. But if you wait
Yeah.
till you're actually doing it and then you say, here's what I did,
Right.
like there's something really powerful about that. I think that's cool. So you were sort of honing your craft
Yeah.
just on your own before it went kind of a public thing.
Yeah. It was like in the mountains doing push-ups, like just trying to, yeah,
Like
like
Karate
waiting.
Kid.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Um,
So.
and then you went to college. I remember when we met, you said that you went for writing or something very much related to that, right?
Yes. I went for creative writing. Um,
Cool.
it was kind of one of those I didn't really the conversation at the time with my father was that like you had to go to college. Like wasn't taking didn't trust that me taking a gap year meant I was going to go to college. Like he was like you
Mm.
have to go to college. And so I spent like most of my senior year trying to figure it out like what the hell am I going to go for? And then because it was like did all those like standardized whatever aptitude things like what should you do? And it was always pretty much every one of them came back for me like, we don't know. Like I'm like, yeah, I don't know either, man. Like this is supposed to help. And so finally I was like, what's like one thing that I've done consistently and like never gotten bored of? And I was like, I've always been writing. Because at that point it'd been
Mm.
like uh 8 years. No, I guess not that long, 6, 7 years, something like that. But it was like it's just been long enough where I was like, that's something I've been doing where I want to get better at it. And it could be like to me, it felt like a calling where I was like, this is something I could do for the rest of my life and make pennies, but if I'm good at it, I'll be happy.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what led
What
to
was
it.
what was it like going from writing on your own to studying writing in college?
There is a little black book of poetry buried in one of my closets that I keep for my humility. It is, I compiled everything that I'd written through like college or not college. I compiled everything I'd written through like middle school and high school or the better pieces that I thought were good and like put them all in this book. And I brought it to college and I was like, if I get a chance, I want to critique some of this stuff. Because I basically went into college thinking like, yeah, I want to be a writer, but it's like, I want to be a writer, not like I am a writer. It was like, I'm here to
Mm.
learn how to properly be a writer now. And so like towards the end of my freshman year, I think is it toward the end of my freshman year, the end of my first sophomore semester, um, I had a poetry class where we had some extra time. And so, it was like, anybody have any extra pieces they want to bring in? And nobody raised their hand. So I was like, fuck it. I'll bring in some stuff that I wrote like senior year of high school, if that's okay. It's like, I
Yeah.
want to see how it holds up now. And everybody's like, yeah, sure. And it just got fucking lambasted. And it was just, And it was definitely the end of my freshman year because it was like I remember looking at it thinking like, dude, it wasn't even a year ago I thought this was all great. And now like this is like, oh, and it was hard and it was rough. And then I almost threw that book away, but I was like, no, I'm gonna keep this as
Yeah.
like a reminder to myself. Like, don't forget like A, like how far you've come, but also B, like where like you produce good, but you can produce crap. Like, and so it keeps me humble, but also like helps me feel like I've grown. So,
So as other people were criticizing it or tearing it apart, did
mhm.
you have enough space to where it didn't feel like they were criticizing you, or did it still feel like that was you that they were? Because as artists, sometimes that's the hard thing is to separate
Yeah.
us from like our work, right?
It's funny because like with poetry and my writing and everything, it was always easier for me to separate. Hip hop, it's been harder.
Interesting.
Yeah, hip hop, it's been harder. And I think it's because for myself, just as what I've learned as being a student of hip hop, hip hop has always been about like speaking your truth. And
Hmm.
so that's to me, it was like I've never not written a song in a way where it was like this is something that I can stand by like as a person, or at least for like maybe where I was at that time. And if there are songs where I feel differently now than I did when I first did them, then it's like that's something for me at least it's like a way to learn and a way to show people that like people grow. And
So,
so oh, go ahead.
oh, I didn't mean to cut you off there, but were you in the college? Obviously, you're studying poetry,
Mhm.
you're studying other writing. Did you study lyrics at all? Because lyrics are kind of their own thing. Like lyrics are they're cousins to poetry, right? Like
Yeah,
there's a little bit of a difference.
it was still like so like when I was in college, this was like 2009 was my freshman year. And like we didn't like slam was just starting to get respected
Mm.
in the literary world. And so hip hop was definitely not being looked at like that. And so like I studied lyrics in like the way of like constantly looking for like who's the like this great MC and then like seeing what they learned, who they learned from, going and looking at their sources and listening to all of that and then like kind of going back and forth. Um I ended up doing like I did kind of my own little like research project about like hip hop and where I thought it was going and like the ups and downs of it and like all this other stuff. And it was I did as much as I could for what was available at the time. Um, I remember thinking it was like a year or two after I graduated college, there were like some really cool like hip hop like evolution documentaries that came out that like spoke to some of the legends and stuff. And I was like, man, like where was this when I was in school? And so like
Yeah.
but it's cool to see all that now because like I was talking about it a lot in school and like talking about how I was trying to basically practice what I was preaching,
Yeah.
um, but had needed the I guess the experience and and really the practice to get to where I wanted to be.
So I know you said you're not a musician. So do you have other people create your tracks and your music, or what is that
Yes.
process for you?
I usually finding a producer that I've just vibe with and then finding a couple things and if there's more than a couple things that I like, then it's like we kind of sit down and conceptualize something and then go from there.
When did you start doing that? Was that in college as well, or was that something that came later?
That was in college. That was in college with my first producer is my little brother.
Oh,
And so
cool.
yeah. And so
That's
we
cool.
worked together. Yeah, for a while. That was good. He went to IPR, and so he was like while he was going through that, we were kind of like I had bought him his first DAW software, and then we just went from there and just kind of like it was trial and error together. So,
And for people watching, IPR is the Institute of Production and Recording. That
yep,
right?
yep.
Yeah. And um it doesn't exist anymore, does
I
it?
know it doesn't. I
Okay.
don't know if it does. It might be online now, or they might have some
Oh.
classes. I feel like maybe I heard something they might be back. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. But I know they went away in the same capacity. They're not downtown next to Aqua anymore. And I
Yeah,
don't think
because
Aqua exists anymore.
they were kind of
Aging myself.
they were kind of in that there was a whole period of time where like for-profit colleges were kind of getting into financial trouble, and I think they were part of a
Yeah,
for-profit college, and I think that's what happened. But
kind of, because I know there were some things where it was like they were promising a lot more job placement than they were like able to give, from what I can remember, at least being close
which
to someone
which
who
kind
graduated from there. Yeah, but
kind of makes sense though, right? Because music really isn't a hey, you go and get a job in music, right? Like I
it's
think
not.
it's an apprentice industry where you have to, and it's freelance, right? So it's not,
Yeah,
you don't get a job, you get jobs and you work with various people. So
yeah, and then eventually you have your own reputation or you don't. Yeah, and that's kind of it's the same thing with writing, and so that was
yeah,
immediately like I think that was something I wasn't so like I knew they weren't going to be able to help place me when I left because the place that I went to was not like a big writers college. They have a great writing program, but it's kind of one of those like diamond in a rough situations.
yeah,
And so because you're not really getting placements from Southwest Minnesota, it's just not happening. And
yeah,
that which is fine, and I knew that. And so like but I was ready, I've been ready to be just kind of halfway struggling artist since I chose to do that. Because it was like I still knew that this was going to be more fulfilling than like having a day job.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So you're working with your brother, college, you're starting kind of that. When did you start actually like releasing your own music?
Uh, Probably after college. Yeah, after college. Couple few years after college. And that was one of those things where it's like I felt like I waited a little too long to start getting into it really.
Mm.
Um, just because I was like I wanted to be really good, wanted to be really good, wanted to start putting stuff out, and then it was like I feel like because waited so long to put stuff out, there were like some things that I mean everybody kind of goes through. There was like, well, I may not have put that out just the same way now, but it's also like there's a reason I haven't yanked any of it down either because I like seeing the growth. And there are still, to me, there are certain parts that like wouldn't have sounded the same had they not come from that version of myself, and they wouldn't have landed in the same way. So,
Well, you had said before, like you kept your old writings, and
mhm.
I think that's important because it's good if you look back and cringe a little bit, right? Because that tells you that you've grown. And if you
Right,
don't kind of have that mark in the wood, you never really feel like you're making progress. Like that's kind of the
right.
artist's, I guess, curse, or that's kind of like the burden we all carry is because none of us none of us are as good as we want to be,
Hmm.
right? Like, I don't know if you're ever as good as you want to be.
But that's a good thing.
Oh,
And
it's totally good.
yeah, it's a
Yeah.
good thing. Because I think it's like
Yeah.
if you feel like you have nothing left to learn, like that's how boring is that?
Right.
Or it's like what else is there then? Like I guess move on to the next thing. Like, but it's like no, I feel that's why I continue to keep doing it. I mean, there's always another person that inspires you. There's always another sound that you didn't think of. There's always a story you haven't told yet. There's always something. So that's what I
So,
love about creating.
so Crowfather is a unique artist name.
Yes.
Where did that come from?
That came from slam poem I wrote in college. So I had taken myself to therapy for the first time, like on my own without the coercion of anyone else. And around the same time, I had a broken window in my bedroom and was waiting on maintenance to fix it. And so for like a week or two, I had this crow that was waking me up every morning.
Hmm.
And so that made me like just more aware of them. And then saw like a couple of them like dive bombing in front of my car on the way to campus. And I was like, why are they doing that? And then started thinking about like had this thing where I was like going through a lot and again was like waking up untimely, like my room wasn't right, whatever, like this like holy crap, this old window, like I shut the thing and it breaks and it's like now I gotta wait for this guy to and it's just like nothing's going and it's a class and all this other stuff. And so I started thinking and I keep seeing these crows and it was just like this thing that registered in my brain one day where I was like, what if crows have depression too? And then started thinking about how like you wouldn't think that with any other bird. And so then I was like, but like crows, they have these dark feathers, they have this voice, they got this bad reputation. Why do they have a bad reputation? Started looking into it and I was like, oh, they really only have a bad reputation because of like Western society and all this other stuff. And so I was like, they're actually extremely intelligent and very loyal and all these other things. And I was like, oh, they're just really misunderstood. It was like kind of like people with depression. And so then I started writing this poem because I'd been doing these open mics and hosting like poetry slams because I'd been getting into spoken word as a way to bridge like my literary training with getting into hip hop. And so I wrote a poem called For the Crows and basically related like people with depression and anxiety to crows. Like saying like, yeah, we carry darker feathers and our voice isn't as beautiful as the rest of society, but like we still have something to say, like we're still important, we're still here. And so that was like, and I say all of these things, I wear these dark feathers proudly because I'm trying to find my murder to fly with, was kind of the whole thing. And so after that, my classmates and my friends and a bunch of people started calling themselves my crows. And it just kind of was a theme. And then when I finally was like, I maybe less than a year later was like, hey, by the way, I'm gonna start doing hip hop. Everybody was like, cool, you better name yourself Crow something. And it was like I had no question. Like everyone I talked to was like, so your name's gonna be something with Crow, right? And it was like because of this poem, because of how like they're like, no, they basically were like, you branded yourself as a guy who wants to talk about mental health now. Like that has to be like that should be the thing. You're really good at it. And so that's kind of just where it became its own thing. And then it was just finding the right phrasing. And then Crowfather came about because it was just like it reminded me of like I've got Scandinavian heritage, and I was thinking All Father, Crowfather.
Mm.
So that's kind of it sounded cool.
I love you told me that story before, and I love that story, and I love I guess you could say kind of your mission and kind of your focus on mental health too.
Hmm.
Um, and so when you were starting to do music and when you started to release music, were you, and I'm trying to get a sense of time, like was it back when people were putting stuff online, or were you doing CDs, or like what was the first release that you did?
First release I did was on like fucking SoundCloud and I had CDs printed like with jewel
Cool.
cases. Yeah. Like that's where it was 2017, I think. Yeah. So it was then that was a few years after my graduation. So it had taken me time because I just basically came back and was like trying to figure out what the hell to do and then really wanted anything like I wanted that first project and wanted that first couple of things to really be with my brother. And so it was like waiting for him to kind of get in the right headspace. And then like we had things happen in our family that like kind of stunted both of us. And so it was
Mhm.
like it just took a while to get that first foot out the door. But like again, it's like, if you have regrets, it's just lessons you haven't learned. And so it's like I appreciate every step of my journey because it's like I wouldn't be where I'm at without it.
Are you so are you still working with your brother now,
No,
or no?
no.
Is that another story for another
Another
show?
story for another time.
Um, so how many releases have you had?
Ah, so five?
Awesome.
I think five, four or five. So I had Murderous Intent, I had Crossroads, I had For the Crows, Late Nights Inside. Oh, so four. Four. And then there was, yeah, four. Four that still exist.
And are these albums, EPs? Like,
Yes.
okay.
There are two full-length albums and two EPs. And then like various singles here and there. Like there was a couple of EPs that got lost along the way. There was a hard drive crash
Oh,
at one
yeah,
point that I lost like two, three EPs off of. So that's, it's you just keep going. Life keeps lifing. Uh, right now, there's another thing in the works, but I don't know. Like it's like too soon to really announce anything. It's just like, I mean, you're always working on something.
yeah.
So I'm just trying to figure out if it's a whole glob of singles or if it's another project.
What's the most recent release that people could check out? Like
Late
on,
nights and side quests.
and
N-
was there a theme to that?
Yes. Oh yeah. So it basically, again, like everything that I do kind of has the underlying like mental health, like resilience, like trying to, talking about the things that people don't want to talk about, but they kind of need to hear sometimes. Um, and the whole like my theme with this was like going back to kind of 90s era, like nostalgic, like boom bap hip hop,
Mm.
and then also like touching on my old like nerd era of like Toonami and Adult Swim And so there's like samples from kind of those eras or things that sound like those ideas, I guess. And then basically I just took that and ran with it. Like, uh, in my mind, I kind of was like embodying, like, in my mind, it felt like I was personifying how I felt as a kid watching Wu-Tang for the first time. Where I was like, oh, these guys are
Awesome.
talking about kung fu and fighting demons and stuff. Like, that's super cool. But then, like, listening to it as an older person and hearing it again and just being like, man, these guys were talking about like grief and like way more than just fighting sword styles and all that kind of stuff. Like, it's so cool. And so then trying to do like a very similar thing and using more like, I guess, my references where it's like instead of, old kung fu movies for me, it was like video games. So like using video game
Cool.
and kind of anime references kind of do the same thing to like personify how I would fight my demons. So,
Have you ever felt pressure in your music journey slash career? Have you felt pressure, or have you felt like the stress of trying to figure out, like, who am I? What should I make? Like, has that been something that you have
oh
struggled
yeah.
with?
Oh
What
yeah.
what's that been like for you?
I mean it's tough because it's like we all want to authentically be ourselves, but then it's like in trying to do that, you're also just racked with like imposter syndrome and all the other trappings of like trying to be a creative person. Because it's like you even when you say you don't want success or you don't want fame, like nobody believes it.
Hmm.
Like, I would like I genuinely I see because of how just and again grateful for the journey that I've had, grateful for it. I was able to have my struggle with addiction already and having dealt with it and figured out kind of all of that without having any kind of fame. And all I see is like from these young people that find fame so early is they have to go through all of this in the spotlight with all of these people not telling them honest opinions.
Mm.
And so having had some of the experience I have, like I really don't know that I want a massive level of success. And so like that's hard to like come to grips with, but then it's also like it's freeing because it gets you away from that whole like who am I? What am I doing? Like because there are so many times where it's like you put something or I've created something or maybe even put something out where I'm like, this doesn't feel like me. Like that feels like it's
Mm.
something that's trying to get attention or it's trying to be this version of myself that I think is going to be popular or successful or whatever, rather than just doing something that's authentic and not worrying about it.
It's a weird mind game, because on one hand, you want to be artistic, you want to be true
Hmm.
to yourself, but then you have the whole world telling you that you should monetize this, right? Like, the second somebody is like,
Yep.
"Oh, you're good at something," they're like,
Yep.
"You should sell it. You should, and it's like,
Yep.
yeah, but the second you start putting that onto it, it changes it. I think.
Yeah. It does. It does. It absolutely does. And that's why it's like it does. I mean, it's always, I don't know. It's always like that's one of those things where it's like it kind of makes me look at people differently, where it's like, are you here to create or are you here for something?
I
And
have I have gone through this, like, all the time. Like, do you write things to try to impress this quote unquote audience, or do you write it because you're feeling it?
yeah,
And the older that I've gotten better at being like, I'm gonna make what moves me, and then I will find the audience for it. I'm not making
right,
the art for the audience.
right.
Like, it's the opposite. It's
And
like,
yes, absolutely. Not sorry to cut you off, but yes.
no, because I think maybe the art that you make isn't supposed to have like a Lady Gaga level of success, right? Like,
Right,
maybe the audience isn't that big, but like, does the size of the audience measure the quality of the audience? See, that's the thing, is
right,
I don't think it does. I don't think
right.
it does.
And that's one of those things where it's like it's kind of it's a catch 22 that's come along with social media where it's like it's
Mm.
allowed us to be able to find those niches, those corners where we can exist with our audience. Because like you said, it doesn't have to be this big, massive, like wildly successful like Lady Gaga kind of following. You can just have like 1,000 people that support you, and
Yeah.
you could get by with that. And that's like, and you could get even less than that. You if you had dedicated fans that want to show up and actually like support, you could get by with doing whatever and having a part-time job to fill in the rest, but still being able to create on a
Yeah.
continuous level without having to stress about it. But
And I
it's
think that,
like, sorry,
oh, no,
uh,
go ahead.
I was just gonna say the catch-22 of it is also that it's like, but then it also like everybody is looking for that corner now. And so it's harder to become the guy that stands out that says like, hey, I got some cool stuff over here. Like,
Well, I mean, I started doing music back in the day when I was making cassettes in high school.
yes,
Like, so
yes, I
that's
remember you saying that.
going back. But I remember when if you had a CD, like that was like a status symbol, right? Like if you could release your own CD, like that
Yep,
was like news. And I still see people online now that are kind of in that old way of thinking where they're like, I made a song. Like everybody should just pay attention to me because I made a
right.
song. And they don't realize that there's 100,000 songs uploaded to Spotify every single
Every
day,
single
right?
day. Yeah. And so,
So,
yeah.
yeah,
Like, how do you, and then that's like, go back to the imposter syndrome and everything like that. Like, how do you, what then becomes the whole, like, you have to have a really strong, like, motivation or a really strong, like, driving force. And that's like, that comes back to like, you gotta love it. And I mentioned calling earlier, and I think we talked about this a little bit at the show too, where it's like, you kind of hit this point of like, and I guess to circle and to kind of tie it into like what you're saying, who am I? It's like I'm always going to be somebody that makes music. And so
yep,
it's like whether that's successful or not, I guess. It's just there's like a what is the it's like a weird sense of like relief to know that like I know what my calling is, even though
yeah.
sometimes it's a little dejecting because you're like, yeah, me and millions of other people. So
Yeah, but it's always been that way though.
it
Really, when you
always
think about it,
really it
right? Like
has. Yeah.
like there's always been millions of people making music and
Hmm.
millions of people doing it. So why do some rise above? And I think people also forget that there is a quality factor,
Oh yeah.
right? Like I think the fact that the playing field is so level, the way that you
Hmm.
have to get beyond and actually get noticed is you have to be really good.
You have to stand out,
And I
or
think
at
that's a
least,
good thing.
or at least be really good at selling yourself. Like get really good at marketing. Like, because that's like we see a lot of that too, where it's like the product is not great, but the dude hustles. The people that hustle
Yep.
these days are like, man, you got to give it to him.
Yep.
So
And now you add in AI, which
yeah. Oh God,
I have noticed so many songs on Spotify that are AI,
that's horrible.
like the artists
Hmm. That's just horrible.
and I can kind of hear it when it's in AI because it's like that there's a little bit of something that you hear.
Right.
Um, but they're getting a lot of streams and
They're
they're getting
getting a
a
lot of
lot of like
streams.
stuff. Yeah.
And it's just like it's wondering it like is so then what happens? Like is live music dead? Like because then it's
Well,
like, because I mean, you've already had this like constant problem, and especially in hip hop, of like people rapping over their vocals and like basically just doing karaoke for 50,000 people. And so like now it's is that gonna that already tells me it's gonna transfer right into having AI artists do the same thing.
well,
Ah, it's upsetting.
I mean, AI artists can even make videos, right? Like you can
Hmm.
do AI videos.
Yep.
But I think it's going to create opportunity, right? Because it almost feels like we're going back to the point where you have to be a real artist and you
Yeah,
have to really get out there and
I do agree there.
connect, right? Like
Yeah.
it's not just I think the days of like artists not being accessible, I think that will change a little bit. Like I think the
Okay.
artists that really get a following will be the
Yeah.
ones that build a connection, whether that be through live video or even better is like live performance,
Live performance. Yeah.
right? Like, and it might localize music a little bit more too, because I feel
I
like I feel like music scenes
Yeah.
have kind of suffered, right? Like I remember a
Yeah.
time where Seattle had a scene, like Memphis had a scene, Minneapolis had like nationwide people knew that there were these things going on.
Yep.
And I feel like that went away a little bit, right? Like you
Because
don't,
everybody's in each other's living rooms now.
right.
And so, yeah. So no, I totally agree. And now it's all unless you're like specifically searching for music in your area, which people aren't doing, because it's the convenience of like just opening your phone and just being like, what's this? Like, um,
I
you have
mean, nothing against DJs. DJ is an art itself, but people don't even
yeah,
have wedding bands anymore. They have
no.
DJs or they just play a playlist, right? Like,
Yep. Well, and that's half the time too, is like it's a DJ that's just playing a playlist. Like
right.
that's, that was one of the things why I enjoyed working with my brother so much in the beginning was because he was doing turntablism. And so it was
Oh,
like,
cool.
yeah, it felt like we were still keeping part of hip hop like very much a part of our set. So,
Um, so when I saw you perform live, and I had listened to your music on Spotify before I went to the show, so I was somewhat familiar, but I think the music really came alive for me when I saw you performing
thank you.
because you just like I mean, you hear this about performers, but it's almost like you became someone else. Like your
Ah.
performance persona doesn't seem like who I'm talking to right now. Like, do you know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
okay. Yeah, I get what you're saying.
I
Yeah,
mean, like you see somebody like a Janet Jackson who's very shy in interviews and then she just like kills it on stage. Like that's what I felt kind of with you, where it was like you have lots of presence, like your performance was great.
thank
And
you.
I remember you saying that you've worked a lot on that. So like how did
Yes.
you develop that part of it? Because that's an art too.
Um, oh man. Honestly, coming from like doing poetry readings and doing like spoken word and stuff like that first, like I feel like that was a big part of it. Because it was like this massive like you didn't have music. Like there was like you didn't have the music to lean on, but also you didn't have to match with the music. So it was like if you missed your place, you could work it into your performance and just take a second to pause and then remember where you were and then keep going. Whereas like with music, it's like if you do that, you're fucked. And so it was like uh there was like kind of that, but it also like it made me have to because you have to perform it then. Like you are the only there isn't the music is kind of because music can kind of help tell the audience the tone that they're supposed to feel. It can kind of help shape or give the score to the performance and kind of help guide people into what's this kind of sounds like it's going to be heavy and then everything that I'm telling you is heavy and it puts you in that mindset.
Yeah.
Whereas like when it's just spoken word poetry, it's you. It's all you. And so it's like you're projecting the level of whatever you need them to feel. And if you don't sell it, you're not going on to, because I did it competitively for a while. And if you don't, if you don't sell it, you're not going on to the next round.
So tell me about that. How does that work? Competitive slam poetry? That's
It was at Kieran's Irish Pub. I don't know that it still is. I probably still, I hope it still is. I need to go. I keep thinking to myself, it's been a few years. I need to go back and just like say hi. Um, but I did that for 2 years after graduation, I think. Oh, 2 years. You basically
that's
show up.
cool.
It's like once a month. You go and it's 3 rounds. And there's judges. They pick random judges in the audience, and you kind of like people get their scores, and then at the end, it's like the top three get a place in the next like semi-final, whatever, or quarter-final thing, and then people from the quarterfinals go on to the semis, and then semis,
Cool.
finals, and blah 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 blah. And then it's basically like the top four poets in the entire city are the team that's chosen to go represent Minneapolis in the nationals.
That's cool. Did you go to national?
Super cool. No, I
Oh,
came close.
bummer.
I was one placement away from being the auxiliary poet 1 year. So that was like the furthest got. And then it was like I had had a moment with myself where I was like, what am I doing? Like really enjoy doing this, but it didn't feel like it was fulfilling to me personally. And there were
Hmm.
other people it was like one of those things where it's like when you're like I'm really excited to play football, but there are all these people here that are like way more excited to play football and they've been playing football their whole lives. So I'm gonna get out of the way so they can play football. And that's kind of how I felt about like the slam scene at the time, where I was like, I really like doing this, but I was always kind of doing this to help me do this. And there are these people here that really love slam poetry and really love spoken
Mhm.
word. So I'm just gonna get out of the way and let them do that and go do hip hop like I've been wanting to do this whole time. And so that's kind of what that was the basically decision that I made after that. And then it was like a year or two after that, my first full length album came out.
What's the Minneapolis hip hop scene like these days?
Go local dope shit. Uh, the show that I'm performing in, it's been a long running series hosted by CMJ, and it used to be Uncle T. Now it's I just got the MacGyver. He's a DJ that's been around for a while too. I mean, honestly, that's like the best place that I know of to get a hand on the pulse. There are a few open mics that were around for a little bit. Juice Lord had some stuff going on, so tap in with, his social medias. He was hosting things for a while. There's also Righteous MC is doing Gladiator School. That's like if you want to see some crazy like off the top ciphers, like some true freestyling, like that's
Mm.
crazy. Those are really cool. As far as like that for underground hip hop stuff, I mean there's Minneapolis Drew is still doing stuff. I mean, it's just like there's not things have kind of been quieter. And so it's like, and I don't know if it's because like admittedly I've had my head down for a few months just working, um, and figuring out what my next steps are going to be, but also because like last summer we booked like last summer I had 10 or 12 shows between spring and fall. And
Awesome.
then this year we just weren't getting any like there was nobody really booking hip hop. And so that was kind of, and I've been seeing a lot more rock shows, a lot more punk shows and stuff like that. And so I don't know what's going on really with hip hop right now, but I'm also not terribly in tune.
Do you are you a writer that writes even when you're not working on a project?
Yes.
What's
Yeah,
your what's your cadence of writing? Is it an everyday thing or what is that like for you?
I try to be every day, whether it's like if I'm not actually writing something down every day, that I'm thinking about stuff every day. So there's always like, I had dissociate a lot as far as just like with a lot of my more like written and fictional stuff. And so conceptualizing like what the next step's going to be for that, like whereas, kind of building my outline for the chapter while I'm writing the chapter. And then it's like one day I'll sit down and pump out a few pages and then I won't touch it again for a week. Um, and then with music, it's kind of the same thing where it's like if I know that I'm like in like kind of itching to put something down or itching to do something like that, then I'll basically start. A lot of times, like my commute for work is like an hour. And so I'll put music on in the car or I'll put beats on in the car that I've listened to or bought already or something like that and just kind of see like, is this inspiring me today? Or a lot of times I'll listen to my subconscious and just be like, again, oh, I'm thinking about that. So I put it on and then just see where it takes me. Um,
Cool.
and then generally speaking, once I find something that I like, it's like the hyper focus kind of sets in where it's like I get my teeth in and I like it and I'm not letting go until I figure out where it's going. Like, and so a lot of times I'll write 75 to 80 for 80% of the song before I try at least, and then rehearse the ever loving hell out of it and then figure out if I like it before I track it. And then it's once I track it, that's when I figure out that last like 10 to 20%, depending on if I wasn't able to write that already. But honestly, like was it the last studio that I went to, Minnehaha Recording Company, uh, guy named Tony there, he's a great dude. He was like, not to toot my own horn, but he was like, you're one of the best rappers that I've recorded. He was like, you come in here rehearsed. He's like, holy shit. Like, I don't, like, I'm walking there and I'm like, we got 3 hours, we're getting 3 songs done.
Nice.
And that's how it goes. Like with doubles, with backings, with everything. And it's like I do an hour because I'm like I want it to be ready to go. And then on top of that too, like I've noticed just as an artist over the years, there's a difference between a song that you just recorded or you just finished writing to record versus a song that you have been performing for months and or years.
For
And
sure.
so like just knowing that. So it's like even though it's new, it's like newly recorded and it's new to people. Like Late Nights and Side Quest came out in March, but I had been rehearsing that probably since November because it's like that's
Very
just
cool.
how long I'd had it down. That's how long I'd had it like made sure it was ready to go. Because I was like, are these going to be the songs? Like, are these still going to sound the same? Or are they still going to sound like this? Are they going to sound better? Is there a better recording I could give for these? Like, yeah.
What advice would you have for newer writers, newer people who are maybe looking to record, looking to release their own stuff? Like, what advice would you give them?
It's not going to be perfect. It's never going to be perfect. If you're waiting for perfect, it's never coming out.
Yeah,
Um, One of the things that helped me so much as a writer in workshops, like before I even got to writing songs and doing all that, which to me it's like writing stories and writing poems is one thing, but then like you look at the vast ocean of songwriting and it feels like the same thing where it's like, how do I do an original thing? Uh, there are no original songs left. There are no original stories. There are no original movies. There's no original anything. Stop worrying about it. Let that go. That helped me so much. And just it's not it's done. It's all been done. It's all been done in some way, shape, or form. The thing that you bring to the table is your version of it. So
yeah,
like stop worrying about, oh, this is just another song about a guy in love, or another song about a girl and blah 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 blah, or another blah. Yes, that's what everything is. That's what it all is ever. It's what your favorite song is. That's what your favorite movie is. So like just let it go and just write the thing. Do the thing that you want to do.
yeah.
So that's my biggest advice because I feel like I took too long and I stressed about it too long. And then it's like in the last couple years, I feel like I've really started to hit my form of like, this is the artist that I had been hoping I would have been at the beginning, but it's like if I had just started getting after it, I would have gotten here faster.
But do you think so
But
though? Like
but I know, but then at the same time, like, do I though? Like, do I think I would have gotten here faster? Because I also think like if I had gotten faster, I might have seen more success while I was still in a bad place. And then
right.
and then or it's like or something could have happened at a certain point and then I never would have healed the way I should have healed before I started telling these stories.
Or you
And
never
so
would have had the ideas, like some of the
or
ideas,
that.
you
Yeah,
know.
exactly. Yeah. So
I think you can't regret. I mean,
you can't regret because like yeah.
regret and you can't look backwards.
Mm-mm.
You have to focus on doing the best you can
Right.
going forward, right? And I love what you
Absolutely.
said about like the originality thing because
Hmm.
I have struggled with that. And all of us want to be that artist that sort of changes the genre, right? So
Yes. Yeah.
we're looking for that thing that's like no one's ever done that beat before and like, you know, that changes the whole entire like industry. And it's like
Right.
nobody can predict when that's going to happen. And
No.
I think the key is I love what you said, you have to be you and it's your perspective
Yes.
that changes what is in the art, right? Like nobody
Yep.
complains that every painting, every photograph is a rectangle, right? Like
Right.
it's not about the shape, it's what's in the shape.
Yes. Yep. And it's not even about like nobody complains about like, oh, he used this brand of paint over this brand of paint. Like it doesn't matter what kind of paint it is, it's how the colors and what way they're painted made you feel. And it's like, yeah,
Right.
exactly. Yep.
Or like, oh God, he's not original. He painted a girl.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
exactly. Like
Like,
nobody's like, oh man, another sunset. Like, yeah,
um,
absolutely.
but that's why I think being like a writer of any kind or like just a creative person in general is so hard in the aspect of you're always fighting against your brain.
It's daunting.
It is.
Yeah, it is. And then it's like, and it's it's wild because I'll have these moments where it's like it'll shine through of like especially when I have these conversations. I appreciate these conversations, especially the conversation we had at Bodiz, because it was like I came home and I'm pretty sure I said to my wife, I was like, I always forget that I know what I'm talking about until I start talking to somebody about it. And then it's
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, like I did go to school for this. Like I have been doing this for a decade plus. Like oh, like, and it's just like, it's nice because you get to have those moments of clarity where it's like, I'm saying these things from muscle memory because I've been doing this long enough. And so it helps kick like imposter syndrome in the ass sometimes to be like, hey, remember, like, we do this. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. And so It does. It super helps.
What's helpful too is when you hear about like sometimes your influences or
Hmm.
like people who you perceive to be at a different level
Right.
when they talk about the same insecurities, right? Like
Yes.
they see their imperfections. They feel like they're just faking it sometimes.
Yep.
And I think we're all in it together, but I do think that there is connection and community, right? And I think that's what's fun about being around other writers and other singers and
Yes.
songwriters and rappers and like
Yep.
all of that stuff because in our everyday lives, you go around and talk to people about some of this stuff and they just glaze over and they're like, I don't really care.
Right.
But then you find your tribe, right? You find your
Right.
people like this and yeah.
Exactly. Then you find that it's like I want to find the people who are also going to be nerdy about like cadences and like certain things. Be like, oh, did you hear how he did? Like he paused right there. Did you hear that? Like just the intentionality of the smallest things. And it's like paying attention to that, or it's like finding people that aren't afraid to like kind of. For me, it's whenever I run into somebody that I just met and they're hearing something they haven't heard before, and they're just like kind of just really into it, not caring that like we just met, and it's like
Yeah.
we're bonding over the song that we're hearing for the first time. Like that, those are the moments that I love the most, I think. It's like how music, like you said earlier, music is that universal thing.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, it's been great to have you on the channel. Where can people find your music? Do you have a website or what's the best way to get in touch?
Website is crowfathermpls.com. I would say crow like the bird, father like your daddy, MPLS like Minneapolis. And then socials, Crowfather MPLS as well. Streaming just under Crowfather. So I
Awesome.
appreciate, thank you for so much for having me. Appreciate this. It was a great conversation.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, and we'll definitely have you back. What I want to do is get some other artists together and do kind of like a roundtable
Yes.
thing. So hopefully the audience watching this will dig that too. But it'll be fun
Yes.
to talk about topics that affect all of us, and it's all
Absolutely.
about connection. So thank you.
Yeah, especially with all the yes. No, it's not. I don't want Minnesota goodbye it, but yes, just absolutely have an artist roundtable and talk about the current admin regime's idea
Yeah,
of like free speech and what the media should look like.
absolutely. And how do we just get heard, right? Like how do we,
That
how do we stand out? I think
how do
that's the biggest thing.
absolutely.
Awesome. Well, Crowfather, Nick, thank you so much, and well, we'll see you next time.
Thanks again for having me, Chad. Have a good night.